Today's video is sponsored by Surfshark VPN. Now recently I found myself pondering a question. Does Indonesia exist? I know everybody says it does, but I've never been there. How do I know it's not some massive, sinister conspiracy? Well, thanks to Surfshark, I can change my online location to Indonesia, or any one of 64 other countries. That way I can watch their streaming services, which I otherwise wouldn't be able to do from here in the UK, or I could even book flights there, getting the best price using region-specific pricing. If the truth about Indonesia is being censored by our government, I could use Surfshark to get around that censorship. And thanks to Surfshark's advanced encryption, the sinister conspiracy couldn't snoop on me while I did so. You can get 83% off a 2-year plan with Surfshark, plus 3 months extra free by following the link in the description below and entering the code JAGO. Surfshark can be used on unlimited devices, and there's even a 30-day money-back guarantee. Surfshark, because Indonesia probably exists. Good evening. Today we are, as they say, kicking it old school. We are taking this little series on stations that have changed their names way back to the oldest underground line. The Metropolitan line first opened in 1863 as the Metropolitan Railway, running from Paddington Bishops Road to Farringdon Street, calling along the way at Edgware Road, Baker Street, Portland Road, Gower Street and King's Cross. So right off the bat we can see that this is going to take a while. These days the Underground is part of a proper transport network that includes National Rail, TfL Rail, the Overground and lots of other forms of transport designed to interconnect. If you have a new station at, say, Paddington, you're going to call it Paddington. The builders of the Metropolitan Railway didn't have the benefit of 150 years of urban mass transit experience to build on, so they named those early stations after precise geographical locations, rather than interchanges. Which is kind of weird, because one of the main reasons the Metropolitan Railway was built was to link London's mainline stations. However, if we look at name changes in purely historical order, things are going to get confusing. Well, more confusing than they already are. Let's go from east to west. We'll start at the eastern terminus, Aldgate, which has always been called Aldgate. OK, let's skip ahead to Liverpool Street, which opened in 1875 with the name Bishopsgate. It was renamed in 1909. What's kind of interesting is that when the station first opened, the main line station at Liverpool Street was only a year old. Liverpool Street, the main line station, was built to replace Bishopsgate Station, which was another main line station a little way away. So perhaps the Metropolitan assumed that they would be reflecting the main line terminus in some way. That's just speculation, and to be honest, I really haven't thought it through. Moorgate opened in 1865 as Moorgate Street, not getting its present name until 1924. Barbican's had a few names. In 1865 it was opened as Aldersgate Street. In 1910 it was renamed to just Aldersgate. Then in 1924, Aldersgate and Barbican. And finally, in 1968, Barbican. I always find it interesting the way the names of stations will sometimes slowly creep towards the present-day name. Just me? Farringdon was, as I say, originally Farringdon Street. In 1922 it became Farringdon and High Holborn, and that name is reflected on the facade of the station entrance, which was built that year. But it only officially had that name until 1936, when it dropped the and High Holborn bit. If I were to speculate, because why stop now, I'd suggest that this was to avoid confusion with the actual Holborn station. King's Cross St Pancras. I swear King's Cross St Pancras shows up in about 90% of the videos I make. The Metropolitan station was opened as King's Cross and wasn't renamed until 1940. At that time it was a separate station from the Northern and Piccadilly line stations, but in 1941 new platforms would be opened closer to the rest. Euston Square began its life as Gower Street and kept this name until 1909. As part of the rebuild of Euston Station, there's going to be a subway connection running between Euston and Euston Square. I don't know if that's going to affect the name or if it's going to be a kind of bank monument situation where two linked stations have different names. Great Portland Street opened with the name Portland Road, but by 1917 it had gained enough self-esteem to rename itself Great Portland Street. 6 years later it was renamed again to Great Portland Street and Regent's Park, but in 1933 it was renamed to Great Portland Street, presumably to avoid confusion with the nearby Bakerloo station that is called Regent's Park. Finchley Road opened in 1879, but carried the name Finchley Road South Hampstead from 1885 to 1914. There seems to have been a bit of a trend for the Metropolitan to do this, to rename their stations to suggest that they actually serve two places, and then to change their mind. Northwick Park was a relative newcomer, opening only in 1923, therefore presumably the Metropolitan had decided to get ahead of the game by naming it after two places from the very start. It was called Northwick Park and Kenton. This put them in a good position for the inevitable simplified renaming which happened in 1937. In 1880 Harrow Station was opened, but in 1894 it became Harrow-on-the-Hill, a name it still has. This is despite the fact that it's in Harrow and not Harrow-on-the-Hill. That's the Metropolitan Railway's marketing department for you. Moor Park opened in 1910 but had the name Sandy Lodge after a local golf course. The Metropolitan Railway loved golf, or at least they loved golfers. In 1923 it was renamed to Moor Park and Sandy Lodge, and then in 1950 Sandy Lodge was deleted. What did the golfers do? CROXLEY was named CROXLEY Green on opening in 1925, but became plain old CROXLEY in 1949, to avoid clashing with another station that has since closed down. We're going to zip back down the line and back up the Uxbridge branch. Now, I covered this in my video on name changes on the Piccadilly line, but as a quick summary, Rayners Lane, Eastcote, Ruislip Manor and Ickenham opened as Rayners Lane Halt, Eastcote Halt, Ruislip Manor Halt, and Ickenham Halt. It was only when development in the local area brought more passengers that the stations were upgraded. Hillingdon opened in 1904, but from the mid-1930s to the mid-1950s it was named Hillingdon Swakeleys, a name still visible on the roundels. OK, back down and up again. Chorley Wood opened as Chorley Wood, 2 words, in 1889. From 1915 to 1934 it was Chorley Wood and CHENIES before going back to Chorley Wood. Then in 1965 the space was dropped and now it's just Chorley Wood. Chalfont and Latimer was another 1889 opening when it was called Chalfont Road. It gained the present name in 1915 and never lost it. And finally, right at the far end of the line, there's Amersham. Amersham was Amersham at its 1892 opening, but in 1922 it became Amersham and Chesham BOIS. Then at some time around 1934 it went back to Amersham, as we all shall someday. Maybe. I don't know. I can't think of a good way to end this video. Well, I do hope you enjoyed today's dark red tale from the tube. If you did, I would be very grateful if you'd leave a like and consider subscribing for more. Thanks once again to Surfshark for sponsoring this video. Check out the link below to take advantage of their offer. Thanks also to my chums on Ko-fi and Patreon, whose donations keep this madness going. You are the branch line to my Metroland. And I'll see you all again very soon for another tale from the tube.